Behold, little sparks. Today, we're tearing the covers right off some very dusty, forgotten records to reveal the jagged, terrifying truths of a grim, dark fable. In this explainer, we're going to map out the exact anatomy of your own undoing through the Dare Villa mythos. We're leaving the sterile ink of conventional philosophy completely behind to explore this massive architecture of despair, a literal uncreation of your world mapped through a Fichtean dialectic that is honestly as terrifying as it is absolutely inevitable.
Okay, let's dive into this with a pretty chilling premise. Do you actually think your thoughts are private in the permanent night? We are entering what's known as the uncanny mirror universe. This is a saline nightmare, a psychological landscape where the comforting, traditional role of the jester has been violently consumed. Instead of a friendly fool offering comic relief, that space has been hijacked by a sovereign disruptor, a dark entity that tracks every single tremor of your guilt and weaponizes it against you in a world that has totally forgotten how to dream.
Section 1. The Mirror's Edge and the Evolution of the Sovereign Monster. To truly understand this universe, we've got to meet its ultimate disruptor, their green gold Gnar. This is the truth-telling monster who emerged straight from the silvered glass of the uncanny mirror as a terrifying new reality detailed in the parable of the shattered refraction. Step 1 kicks off when the vampire sovereign steps through the mirror, fully expecting a vacuum, but instead, and here's step 2, he encounters the shattered refraction of the Gnar. In step 3, the observer and the observed violently crush into a single screaming point of energy known as Kimota. So the Gnar isn't just a reflection, he's born from this massive collision.
Now, what's really interesting about this concept is how the Nair perfectly embodies the Fichtean idea of the absolute ich, or the absolute I. What does that mean for us? It's a self-positing force that exists simply because it decides to. It doesn't need an external check or any kind of social friction to justify its existence. Unlike a traditional trickster, the Nair is his own friction. He posits himself dead center in a saline nightmare and has the absolute audacity to call it a garden.
Section 2. The Terminal Synthesis of Will and Nature.
And this brilliantly illustrates the terminal synthesis, where two massive forces combine into one physical form, a literal mosaic of tarnished gold leaf and emerald moss. The golden half represents the Schopenhauerian will, that blind, metabolic fire and burning drive to exist. Then you have the verdant half, which is entropic nature, the emerald moss representing the inevitable, silent end of all things. Together, they take the useless thermodynamic noise of our failed hopes and turn it into the fertile soil for a rigid, savage new purpose.
My golden half is the fire of your well, and my verdant half is the silence of your end. When these two forces interlock, they generate that explosive energy of Kimota. It's an energy that literally forces the world to scream yes to its own destruction. It's a heavy thought for sure, but incredibly potent.
Section 3. The Obsidian Sea and Rejecting Socratic Safe Harbors.
So the crucial point here is the environment the Nair invites us to. He completely and explicitly rejects Socratic optimism. You know that comforting lie that logic and reason will eventually save the day? Yeah, he's not buying it. He refuses the stagnant domestic order of those hiding in their little porcelain towers, favoring an arena where absolutely all intellectual safety is discarded. That arena is the Obsidian Sea. Think of it as the domain where logic finally totally fails and only raw, lived experience survives. It's the ultimate antidote to stagnation and nihilism. This sea is the testing ground for twice-born power, that insane strength you only unlock after your worldview gets annihilated by a violent collision of opposites.
I do not offer the Socratic optimism of a safe harbor. I offer the Obsidian Sea and the strength to dance upon its waves. This perfectly highlights his inverted heroism. He's not guiding us to safety. Safety is a joke to him. Instead, he's giving us the sheer strength needed to navigate this savage existence and dance on those violent waves with primordial joy.
Let's move to Section 4 and see how this builds, subverting the void ledger and the metaphysical clash. Because the Gnar doesn't just challenge our comfort zones, he actively battles the actual architects of negation. On one side, you've got Baron von Nixt, a cold, clinical curator who metabolizes tragic destinies into perfectly geometric, polished blue gems. It's all about sterile erasure. But on the other side, the Grün Gould Gnar, fueled by vibrant, violent, metabolic fire, bringing absolute disruption and ensuring the universe stays wonderfully, permanently incomplete.
We see this perfectly in the parable of the broken ledger. Step 1, the Baron tries to slot the Nar in as just another silent line item in his book. But in Step 2, the Nar's verdant side literally sprouts right through the frozen gravity of the ledger. Step 3, that perfect geometric symmetry cracks wide open. And the result, Step 4, is that the alphabet of reality remains incomplete. As long as the Nar is around, the universe just cannot be reduced to a polished blue gem.
And he brings this exact same disruption to the Sovereign of Gast. Imagine spending 10 years in solitary meditation, forging a calcified gray truth, designed specifically to uncreate the world. The Nair simply walks up to this rigid negation, touches it, and offers a laughter that confirms. In a single instant, he turns a decade of freezing gravity into a wild, dithyrambic dance, proving that beneath every layer of dark nihilism is a far more terrifying, chaotic life force.
Which brings us to the final conclusion in Section 5, the grave dance, and surviving the vanishing point.
Let's trace out exactly how one survives at the very edge of reality, right where logic dies. The parable of the saline feast maps this out in 3 brutal phases. Phase 1 is the feast of pure malice, the saline ichor. In Phase 2, this hunger evolves into a literal terminal thirst. And finally, Phase 3 shows us the grim reality of the vanishing point. To survive it, you have to admit that your soul is locked in a mystical marriage, acting simultaneously as both predator and prey.
You've probably heard of amor fati, but here's what it really means for us. It's a radical, uncompromising love of your fate. It's the only way to take the bitter, savage root of suffering and use it as the sacred ingredient for heroic affirmation. You don't just endure the nightmare, you become a dithyrambic singer, turning your fate into a massive source of primordial joy.
Remember, little sparks, this whole grim dark fable, driven by the grave dance, makes one thing incredibly clear. A collapsing universe cannot be fixed. It can only be aesthetically justified. The Obsidian Sea, the terminal thirst, the grave dance, these aren't problems to be solved. They are the aesthetic justifications of a suffering world. It's the only way to find chaotic beauty when the safety nets are totally gone.
Which leads perfectly to his chilling final command. Dance for me, little sparks, before the vampire sovereign grows thirsty again. This absolutely cements his role as the shadow of the Overman, the monster who literally dismantled the spirit of gravity because it lacked flavor. He's looking right at you, demanding that you affirm your existence right in the face of inevitable destruction. So I'll leave you with this one final provocative question. When the mirror actually breaks, when those Socratic safe harbors crumble to dust and logic finally dies, what are you going to do? Will you just drown in the thermodynamic noise? Or will you embrace the Fichtean fire and learn the grave dance? The Obsidian Sea is waiting.